Listen, I'm going to tell you about the day everything went sideways. Not your typical aliens arrive story. This is the story of what happens when an entire galactic civilization discovers they've been spectacularly wrong about humanity. The Concordia Diplomatic Corps had spent centuries building a comprehensive profile on humans, hundreds of xenosociological studies, thousands of intercepted communications, and petabytes of data. And they were absolutely, categorically certain about one thing: humans were predictable. Predictably primitive. Predictably fractured. Predictably harmless. Ambassador Krell of the Xin'ral Collective reviewed the standard briefing documents one more time during his transit to Earth. Holographic displays flickered with centuries of compiled research, most of which would turn out to be monumentally incorrect. Humans were classified as a developing species, technological infants with nuclear capabilities, but no meaningful interstellar presence. The Xin'ral had seen species like this before, countless times. They would be patronized, gently nudged, gradually integrated into the greater galactic community with minimal fuss. What could possibly go wrong? Spoiler alert, everything. Absolutely everything was about to go wrong. The diplomatic shuttle descended through Earth's atmosphere, its sleek quantum-folded hull reflecting sunlight over the Pacific. Standard first contact protocols were locked in place. Diplomatic immunity confirmed. Translation matrices calibrated. Xenocultural sensitivity algorithms primed. They were ready to make peaceful, controlled, utterly boring first contact with a species they believed they completely understood. Narrator's note: they did not, in fact, understand humans at all. The United Nations Diplomatic Center in Geneva looked like it had been sanitized within an inch of its life. Polished marble floors reflected the nervous energy of assembled human officials who were trying very hard to look calm and collected, which of course meant they were anything but. Captain Remy Lockhart stood at the back of the room, arms crossed, looking like he'd rather be literally anywhere else. His dress uniform was immaculate, not because he cared about appearances, but because Dr. Elena Rodriguez would have killed him if he'd shown up looking anything less than perfect. "They're going to be precisely 7.3 minutes late," Dr. Rodriguez muttered, checking her impossibly precise quantum chronometer. She was a technical advisor who looked like she could solve complex quantum equations while simultaneously planning the most efficient way to destroy something, a skill set that would prove surprisingly useful. Right on cue, the massive doors opened with a hydraulic hiss. Ambassador Krell entered, looking like something that would make a peacock look understated. His exoskeletal diplomatic robes shimmered with what appeared to be living circuitry, changing colors with each movement. Behind him, a retinue of Xin'ral diplomatic attaches floated on anti-gravity platforms, looking down quite literally and figuratively at the assembled humans. "Greetings, Earth representatives," Krell announced, his translation matrix producing a voice that sounded like a combination of a BBC newsreader and someone trying too hard to sound important. "We are pleased to commence official first contact protocols." Remy leaned over to Elena. "Is it just me, or does this guy sound like he's reading from a really pretentious instruction manual?" Elena didn't crack a smile. "Behave, Lockhart." Ambassador Krell continued, either oblivious to or deliberately ignoring the side conversation. "The Xin'ral Collective has been observing your species for considerable time. We believe we understand your developmental trajectory and are prepared to offer guidance toward galactic integration." The phrase "guidance toward galactic integration" was doing a lot of heavy lifting, and everyone in the room knew it. It was diplomatic speak for "we're going to tell you exactly what to do." Remy's left eyebrow, which had a reputation for being more expressive than most people's entire faces, rose slightly. He exchanged a look with Elena that said volumes. "Can you believe this guy?" Dr. Rodriguez stepped forward, her movement precise and controlled. "Ambassador Krell, we appreciate your interest in our species. Perhaps we could discuss the specifics of this proposed guidance." Her tone was polite. Razor sharp, but polite. Krell seemed to puff up, his robes shifting to a deep royal purple, apparently the color of diplomatic self-importance. "Of course. We have extensive recommendations for your technological and social development. Your current model is inefficient. In diplomatic language, inefficient was about as close to an insult as you could get without starting an interstellar incident. Remy muttered, just loud enough for Elena to hear, "Oh, this is going to be good." Little did the Xin'ral know, they were about to learn a fundamental truth about humanity. We don't take recommendations very well, especially not from beings who think they know better. The stage was set. The players were in position, and humanity was about to show exactly why guidance and humans don't belong in the same sentence. The next day's diplomatic session began with a technology exchange that was less an exchange and more a masterclass in condescension. Ambassador Krell pulled out a holographic display that looked like it had been designed by someone who believed complexity equaled intelligence. "We will demonstrate our superior technological capabilities," he announced, projecting a series of intricate quantum entanglement communication schematics. Dr. Elena Rodriguez leaned closer, her eyes scanning the display. Then she did something that made Captain Remy Lockhart's day. She started laughing. Not a polite chuckle, but a full-blown, uncontrollable laugh that echoed through the diplomatic chamber. "Is something amusing?" Krell demanded, his robes shifting to an indignant shade of maroon. Elena wiped a tear from her eye. "Your quantum communication network? It's adorable. Seriously. We solved that problem back in 2037. I want to see our current model." Before Krell could respond, she pulled out a small device that looked like nothing more than a sleek smartphone. With 3 quick taps, she projected a hologram that made Krell's elaborate display look like a child's finger painting. The Xin'ral delegation collectively gasped. The communication schematics were complex. The humanities was elegant, terrifyingly elegant. "But how?" Krell stammered. Remy couldn't resist. "We're funny that way. Give us a problem. We'll solve it," usually while drinking coffee and making sarcastic comments. The cultural misunderstandings continued. The Xin'ral presented what they considered an advanced food synthesizer, a massive machine that could theoretically create nutritional supplements. Elena walked over to a nearby vending machine, punched a few buttons, and produced a burrito that looked significantly more appetizing. "Nutritional efficiency isn't just about mathematical perfection," she explained. "Sometimes it's about actually wanting to eat the thing." Krell tried another approach. He presented a detailed societal management algorithm, a complex system designed to optimize population productivity, resource allocation, and social harmony. Remy took one look and burst out laughing. "You're trying to mathematically manage human behavior?" he asked. "Have you met humans? We make chaos look organized." The Xin'ral had studied humanity from a distance. They'd analyzed data streams, intercepted communications, built elaborate predictive models. They thought they understood humans. They were wrong. So spectacularly wrong. Each diplomatic session revealed another layer of misunderstanding. The Xin'ral saw complexity as a virtue. Humans saw simplicity as genius. The aliens believed in rigid structural systems. Humans invented workarounds before the systems were even fully implemented. By the 3rd day, Ambassador Krell was looking distinctly uncomfortable. His perfectly planned first contact was unraveling in ways no xenosociologist could have predicted. "Your species defies all our predictive models," he finally admitted during a tense lunch session. Remy raised his coffee mug. "Welcome to humanity. We don't do predictable." Dr. Rodriguez just smiled. A smile that said something was coming, something that Xin'ral were not going to enjoy. It happened on a Wednesday. Because of course it did. The Xin'ral delegation had been becoming increasingly bold in their recommendations, which were more like thinly veiled demands. Ambassador Krell had graduated from suggesting to outright dictating what humanity should do. "Your energy infrastructure is primitive," he declared during a closed-door session. "We will provide a comprehensive redesign of your global power systems. It is non-negotiable." Captain Remy Lockhart was staring out the window, his fingers drumming a precise rhythm on his tablet. Dr. Elena Rodriguez sat ramrod straight, her eyes narrowing almost imperceptibly. "Non-negotiable," she repeated. The words hung in the air like a challenge. Krell didn't notice the warning signs. A rookie mistake. The final straw came when the Xin'ral presented their mandatory technological integration plan. It was a document so dense with bureaucratic language that it would make a tax code look like light reading. The plan essentially demanded that humanity surrender all current technological development and adopt Xin'ral systems. Your current technological trajectory is inefficient, Krell announced. We will provide a complete technological reset. All current research will be archived. Your scientists will be retrained according to Xin'ral educational protocols. The room went silent. Dr. Rodriguez's tablet, the same one Remy had been casually tapping, suddenly projected a holographic display that made the Xin'ral's presentation look like a middle school science fair project. Inefficient? She said, her voice dangerously calm. Let me show you something. The hologram expanded. It wasn't just a presentation. It was a comprehensive breakdown of humanity's most classified technological developments. Quantum computing networks that made the Xin'ral look like they were working with an abacus. Bioengineering breakthroughs that could rewrite entire ecological systems. Propulsion technologies that made faster-than-light travel look like a quaint suggestion. And then came the kicker. Remy leaned forward. We'd been playing nice, he said, diplomatic, restrained. The hologram shifted. Military capabilities that made the Xin'ral's defensive systems look like children's toys flickered into view. Adaptive AI systems, modular weapon platforms, defensive technologies that could turn entire planetary invasion forces into cosmic dust before they even entered a star system. Ambassador Krell's robes began to change color, a rapid, panicked shifting that looked like a malfunctioning mood ring. You've been hiding this? He stammered. Elena's smile could have frozen lava. Hiding? No, waiting. There's a difference. The presentation continued. Each slide was a masterclass in technological one-upmanship. Humanity hadn't just been developing technologies. They'd been playing a long game so intricate that the Xin'ral hadn't even realized they were pieces on the board. We don't need your guidance, Remy said. We need you to understand something fundamental about humanity. The final slide appeared. It was simple, just 2 lines of text. We were never asking permission. We were just being polite. Ambassador Krell looked like he might spontaneously combust from a combination of shock, fear, and bureaucratic indignation. This, Elena said, is what happens when you mistake politeness for weakness. Remy couldn't resist one final quip. Welcome to humanity. Population, infinite potential, attitude, exponentially more complicated than you thought. The diplomatic mission had just changed, permanently. The Xin'ral didn't realize they'd kicked a hornet's nest. They'd mistaken humanity's restraint for weakness, which is like mistaking a sleeping tiger for a house cat. Within 72 hours of the diplomatic breakdown, humanity responded with a level of coordinated chaos that would become legendary across the galaxy. It started with the internet. Not just the internet you know, but the internet's terrifying, souped-up cousin that governments and tech companies had been quietly developing. The moment the Xin'ral attempted to block human communication channels, they discovered something remarkable. Humans had already created backup systems, backup systems, and backup systems for their backup systems. Dr. Elena Rodriguez led the technological counteroffensive. They want to see innovative problem-solving, she muttered to Remy. We'll show them innovative problem-solving. Global research institutions that had been working in seemingly unrelated fields suddenly synchronized. Quantum computing labs in Tokyo linked with nanotechnology researchers in Sao Paulo. Aerospace engineers in Houston began collaborating with theoretical physicists in Moscow. It was like watching a global immune system respond to a threat. The Xin'ral had classified humanity as a developing species. They were about to learn the difference between developing and waiting to unleash. Remy oversaw the military coordination. Not through traditional command structures, but through a network so decentralized that it made the Xin'ral's hierarchical systems look like a game of bureaucratic musical chairs. They think we need centralized control, Remy chuckled to Elena. Watch this. Military units across the planet began implementing what could only be described as organized improvisation, adaptive tactics that changed faster than the Xin'ral could analyze them, weapon systems that reconfigured themselves mid-operation, defense platforms that were less fixed installation and more shape-shifting nightmare. The first Xin'ral probe attempting reconnaissance was met with a response that could only be described as technological trolling. Instead of being shot down, it was gently guided into a complex holographic simulation that made it believe it was receiving perfect surveillance data, while actually revealing nothing. Ambassador Krell watched in mounting horror as human responses defied every predictive model. They're not just fighting, he told his senior advisors. They're playing? And they were. Humanity treated the potential conflict like the world's most complex, high-stakes video game. Every system was a potential hack. Every limitation was a challenge to be overcome. Technological breakthroughs that had been quietly shelved suddenly found practical applications. Medical nanotech designed for precise cellular repair, repurposed for adaptive electronic warfare. Climate restoration algorithms, now tracking and predicting alien movement patterns. The truly terrifying part for the Xin'ral was how casual humanity seemed about the entire thing. Research teams collaborated over group chats, military strategists exchanged memes alongside tactical updates. Global coordination happened with the same energy people normally reserved for planning a particularly complicated party. We could have done this at any time, Elena explained to a bewildered Xin'ral diplomat. We just didn't want to. Diplomacy is always the first choice, but not the only choice. Remy added, with a smirk that could freeze plasma, imagine what we could do if we actually got serious. The Xin'ral were beginning to understand a fundamental truth about humanity. They weren't just a species. They were a problem-solving, boundary-pushing, beautifully chaotic force of nature. And they were just getting started. 2 weeks after the initial diplomatic disaster, the Xin'ral Collective made a decision that would be discussed in their historical archives for centuries. They decided to apologize. Ambassador Krell arrived at the UN Diplomatic Center, looking like someone who had been thoroughly and comprehensively humbled. His once magnificent robes were muted, the living circuitry dim and subdued. He looked less like a galactic diplomat and more like a chastened schoolchild. We miscalculated, he began, which might be the largest understatement in interstellar diplomatic history. Dr. Elena Rodriguez and Captain Remy Lockhart exchanged a look that could only be described as maximum restraint mixed with barely contained amusement. The Xin'ral's official statement was a masterpiece of bureaucratic backpedaling. Translated from diplomatic speak, it essentially said, "We're sorry we thought you were stupid. Turns out you're terrifyingly brilliant, and we'd like to be friends now." Humanity's response was equally diplomatic, which is to say, not diplomatic at all. "Sure," Remy said, leaning back in his chair, "we're open to conversation, provided you understand 3 things." Krell looked like he was preparing for a negotiation. He was not. First, Remy continued, we do things our way. Second, our way doesn't mean your way with a human paint job. And third, we're not asking permission anymore. The truly hilarious part. The Xin'ral realized this wasn't a threat, it was just a statement of fact. Galactic records would later show this moment as the true first contact. Not the carefully scripted diplomatic encounter, but this raw, honest exchange where 2 species finally understood each other. Elena's final report was a masterpiece of scientific understatement, initial interaction successful. Recommend continued observation. Potential for mutual technological and cultural exchange high. Likelihood of humans doing something completely unexpected, guaranteed. Remy's unofficial addendum, which mysteriously found its way into the official documentation, read simply, "We're going to need more coffee." As the Xin'ral delegation prepared to leave, Krell made one last attempt at saving diplomatic face. "We look forward to future collaborations." Remy's eyebrow, that magnificent, sardonic instrument of communication, rose just enough to communicate volumes. The galaxy had just met humanity, and the galaxy would never be the same. Somewhere, a coffee machine started brewing, because of course it did.